Millionaire's new wife forgets his daughter locked in the car, until the maid does this. After 2 years of walking through the quiet corridors of grief, Adam Whitmore had started to believe in beginnings again. The death of his wife, Claire, had gutted him, a car crash on a rainy evening that turned his world into silence. In the aftermath, he had shut everything out except for one bright constant, Lily. His 6-year-old daughter, with Claire's same chestnut curls and a gaze that studied the world with gentle curiosity, was both his anchor and his breath. Seattle's business world hadn't waited for him to heal. Adam, a tech entrepreneur known for building and selling startups before most people could spell valuation, had to force himself back into boardrooms and negotiations. But his heart wasn't in it, not until Rosa stepped in. Rosa Delgado, a 60-year-old woman originally from Oaxaca, had worked for Adam's family since before Lily was born. She had been hired as a housekeeper, but quickly became much more. When Claire passed, it was Rosa who kept the house running, who made sure Lily never went a day without a packed lunch, a brushed ponytail, or a bedtime story. She spoke to Lily in gentle Spanish lullabies, and the little girl clung to her like a second mother. Adam, watching from a distance, had grown to rely on Rosa in a way he'd never planned. And she never asked for more than what she was given, her small guest room in the house, a steady paycheck, and the trust of the child she cared for as if it were her own flesh and blood. Then came Vanessa. Vanessa Delacroix was everything Claire hadn't been, which, in his grief, Adam mistook for healing. Where Claire had loved books and rainy days, Vanessa adored parties and sunlit terraces. Where Claire had whispered comfort, Vanessa laughed boldly and threw her head back when she did. She was from New York, sophisticated, magnetic, the kind of woman who made every room feel like it was waiting for her to arrive. They met at a tech gala in San Francisco, and within 3 months, they were inseparable. She didn't flinch at the mention of his daughter, though her smiles when Lily was around always seemed filtered. She called her sweetie, but never bent down to tie her shoes. She asked about Lily's school but never remembered the name of her teacher. Adam, craving escape, convinced himself that she was simply adjusting. That loving Lily would come in time. Vanessa moved into the Whitmore home 6 months after they began dating. Their wedding was a private affair in Napa Valley, vineyard views, designer dresses, soft piano music. Lily was the flower girl. She had cried the night before, asking where her mommy would sit. Adam had said something about clouds and heaven and love never leaving. Vanessa had given her an iPad the morning of the wedding, told her to be a good girl, and that was the last Lily saw of her until the aisle. Rosa had said nothing, but her silence was heavy. She kept Lily close that day, whispering to her in Spanish, braiding her hair, watching every interaction like a hawk. Back in Seattle, life resumed, but it was different. Vanessa redecorated. The pale blue walls Claire had chosen were now stark white. Lily's drawings, once proudly taped to the fridge, were replaced with minimalist magnets. Vanessa often left early in the mornings for Pilates and returned with designer bags. She kissed Adam on the cheek in front of Lily, but rarely acknowledged the girl beyond that. Still, Adam tried. He believed in giving his new wife the benefit of time. Transitions were hard, he told himself. Grief was complicated. Blended families took effort. Then came the Saturday. The sun had barely risen when Vanessa appeared in the kitchen, dressed in a flowy cream blouse and oversized sunglasses, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. She sat across from Adam at the breakfast island, where Lily was quietly coloring with Rosa nearby. "I want to take her today," Vanessa said, nodding toward Lily. "Just the two of us. Girls' day." Adam looked up, surprised. "You sure? She's my stepdaughter. I think we need some bonding time. You said yourself I should try harder." It was true, he had said something like that weeks earlier. But the sudden offer caught him off guard. Lily paused her coloring. "Where are we going?" Vanessa smiled. "A mall. Maybe get you something cute. Would you like that, sweetie?" The girl hesitated. Rosa gently placed a hand on Lily's back, her brow furrowed. Adam turned to Rosa. You think it's okay? Rosa gave a slow nod, though she didn't look convinced. He wanted to believe in progress. In change. He smiled at Vanessa. All right. Just call if you need anything. Vanessa stood, clapped her hands lightly. Yay! Get dressed, Lily. We're leaving in 15. Lily obeyed. Rosa followed her upstairs, quiet as ever. Adam kissed his daughter's forehead before she left. He waved as they drove off in Vanessa's car. The sun was already high. It was going to be a hot day. Back inside, Rosa lingered by the window, watching the car until it disappeared. She turned slowly toward Adam. Do you trust her? She asked. Adam blinked. I think so. Rosa said nothing more. But something in her face, a shadow of worry, almost maternal, remained as she returned to tidying up the breakfast plates. And outside, the temperature began to rise. The parking structure of Belmont Plaza was already humming with the late morning rush. Vanessa pulled the sleek black SUV into a shaded spot near the entrance, glancing at herself in the rearview mirror. She adjusted her sunglasses, touched up her lipstick, and let out a quick sigh of annoyance at the buzzing notification on her phone. She didn't even glance at the child in the back seat. Lily sat quietly, legs swinging, her small hands resting on the edges of her booster seat. The car was still, but warm. She had asked earlier if they could get ice cream after shopping, and Vanessa had smiled in response, but never gave a real answer. Now, the engine clicked off. Vanessa stepped out, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, I told him I'd take her, she said, pushing the door shut with her hip. No, of course not. Look, I'll be quick. 10 minutes tops. The automatic lock clicked, sealing the doors with a faint beep as she walked away, heels clicking against the concrete. Lily turned her head, confused. She reached for the door handle but it didn't budge. Vanessa, she called out softly. Vanessa? But Vanessa was already entering the elevator, laughing at something the person on the other end of the line had said. Inside the car, Lily waited. The first few minutes passed easily. She played with a small plastic horse Rosa had given her that morning, tracing imaginary trails across the seat. The light in the parking lot filtered through the windows, but the air was thick and unmoving. Time stretched slowly. Lily shifted in her seat, trying to find a cooler spot against the leather, but it clung to her skin. 15 minutes. The heat had begun to settle into her chest. She took off her cardigan and placed it behind her head. Her cheeks flushed, her breath came quicker. 30 minutes. Lily's hair began to stick to her forehead. She pressed her face against the window, hoping it might be cooler. It wasn't. Her lips were dry. The plastic horse slipped from her fingers, landing near the floor where she couldn't reach. 45 minutes. She lay sideways now, curled as much as the booster seat allowed. Her eyes blinked slower, and a faint whimper escaped her lips. I want to go home. Meanwhile, inside Belmont Plaza, Vanessa had already passed through 3 stores. She had browsed dresses she didn't need, complimented a store manager's necklace, and purchased a perfume sample she'd never wear. Her phone buzzed again. Adam. She declined the call. At the wine bar tucked between designer boutiques, she ordered a chilled white. She scrolled through photos on her phone, selfies, beach vacations, one of her at a ski resort last winter. There were barely any of Lily. None of Rosa. And only a few of Adam, the carefully curated kind meant for public image. A man at the counter complimented her shoes. She smiled, flattered. It was a comfortable place for her, eyes on her, attention easy, expectations light. So unlike the weight that had started to gather around the Whitmore house. Back at the house, Rosa was cleaning the upstairs bathroom when something shifted inside her. It wasn't a sound or a knock. It was a pull, that inner voice she had learned long ago not to ignore. A chill that settled in her chest, even as the day outside blazed. She wiped her hands and descended the stairs quickly. Adam was still in his office, headphones in, lost in a call. Rosa hesitated only a moment before going into the kitchen and checking the time. Vanessa had left over an hour ago. She tried calling her. No answer. She called Lily's small smartwatch, the one Adam had given her after a scare at a park a few months ago. It rang once, then went to voicemail. Rosa's brow furrowed. She walked to the mudroom and opened the drawer where she knew Adam kept emergency items. There, tucked under spare batteries and charger cables, was a small tracking tablet connected to the GPS chip embedded in Lily's right sneaker. The dot blinked on screen. Parking garage, Belmont Plaza. Rosa stared. It hadn't moved. She clicked refresh. Still there. Her hands began to shake. Without another word, she grabbed her purse, the spare key to the second car, and rushed out the door. She didn't tell Adam. She didn't need to. Something was wrong, and every second counted. Back at the shopping plaza, Lily's condition was worsening. She no longer moved much, her body limp against the car seat. Her small fists no longer clenched. Her skin was flushed deep red, and sweat ran down her temples like beads. Her breathing had become shallow, lips slightly parted, her voice too hoarse to cry. An elderly woman parking a few spaces away noticed the child, or what looked like a child, in the back of the locked SUV. She approached the vehicle slowly, peering inside. "Sweetheart," she tapped on the window. "Are you okay?" Lily didn't respond. The woman backed away, alarm rising in her chest. "Someone call security," she shouted. "There's a child locked in a car." Within moments, a small crowd began to form. A younger man pulled out his phone and dialed 911. Another ran toward the building's entrance to find help. Rosa's car screeched into the lot just as the panic was escalating. She recognized the vehicle immediately. "Dios mío," she gasped, flinging open her door and running toward the SUV. Her heart nearly gave out when she saw Lily slumped inside. "Lily, Lily, mi amor," she banged on the window. No response. The doors were locked tight. She spun toward the gathering crowd. "We have to break the window. Somebody, anything, please." A woman holding a stroller ran back to her car and returned with a small red fire extinguisher. Without hesitation, she handed it to Rosa. Rosa didn't wait for permission. With trembling hands and a voice screaming in her head, she smashed the corner of the window. Once. Twice. The glass spidered, then shattered inward. The heat that poured from the car was suffocating. Rosa reached in, unbuckled Lily's seatbelt with shaking fingers, and pulled the girl into her arms. Her skin was burning. Her eyes fluttered once, then rolled back. "She's not waking up," Rosa cried, collapsing to the ground with Lily cradled against her chest. "Please, hurry." The sirens could be heard in the distance now. A man kneeled beside her, checking Lily's pulse. "She's breathing," he said. "But barely." Rosa wept, rocking the child. "Me Nina. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." The ambulance arrived less than 2 minutes later. As the paramedics lifted Lily onto the stretcher and began cooling her body with cold packs and 4 fluids, Rosa refused to let go of her hand until they loaded her into the ambulance. And then, as if summoned by the chaos, Vanessa appeared, walking casually from the main entrance, shopping bag in one hand, phone in the other. She stopped dead at the sight of the shattered SUV, the crowd, the flashing lights. "Oh my God," she whispered. But Rosa saw her face. There was a flicker of something there, not panic. Not grief. It was calculation. The hospital waiting room was quiet, too quiet for a Saturday afternoon. Rosa sat in the corner, her hands trembling in her lap, her mind racing with thoughts she could barely hold together. Her shirt was soaked with Lily's sweat, her own blood pressure elevated from the frantic rush, and her throat sore from shouting. Still, her eyes didn't leave the hallway where the doctors had disappeared with the little girl minutes earlier. She had not said a word to Vanessa, who stood near the vending machine pretending to scroll through her phone as if nothing had happened. Her designer handbag was slung neatly over her shoulder, her hair still in perfect curls. Occasionally, she would glance at Rosa, but never for long. Their eyes had not met since the ambulance pulled away. Adam had no idea. Rosa had left so quickly she hadn't stopped to call him. Her thoughts had been only on Lily. But now, sitting in the heavy silence, her hands fumbled for her phone. She stared at the screen, 3 missed calls from Adam. She hadn't heard the phone ring over the sirens, the breaking glass, the noise in her head. With shaking fingers, she called him back. He answered immediately. "Rosa? Where are you? I've been trying to reach you, where's Lily? And Vanessa?" His voice was calm at first, but there was tension under it, the kind that only comes when a father senses something is wrong. Rosa stood and moved to the hallway, away from Vanessa. "She's at the hospital," she said softly. A pause. "What? What happened?" "She was in the car. In the sun. Locked in. I found her at the shopping center, unconscious." There was no sound on the other end. Just silence. And then, slowly, Adam spoke again. "She was what?" "In Vanessa's car. Alone. The doors locked. For over an hour, I think. Maybe more. She's stable now, they say." But it was close. He didn't hang up, but the line went dead quiet again. Rosa could almost hear his world collapsing on the other side. "I'm coming," he said at last, and the call ended. Rosa leaned against the wall, pressing her hand to her chest. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since she pulled Lily from the heat. 20 minutes later, Adam arrived, his shirt half-tucked, jacket in one hand, his face pale. The second he stepped into the waiting room and saw Rosa, he ran to her. "Where is she?" "They're running tests. Cooling her down. They think she'll recover fully, but they won't know everything until later." "And Vanessa?" he asked, scanning the room. Still by the vending machine, she looked up, saw Adam, and smiled as if they'd run into each other on a lunch break. "Oh, thank God you're here," she said, walking toward him. "It was awful." Adam's expression froze. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. "You left her in the car?" Vanessa blinked. "No. I thought she got out with me. I was distracted, You didn't even check?" "It was a misunderstanding." Rosa stepped closer now. Her voice was lower, but steady. "She was sleeping in the back seat. You shut the door. You locked the car. You walked away. I saw it." Vanessa's jaw tightened. She turned to Adam. "She wasn't even supposed to be in the back." Look, I was on the phone, and I thought she stopped herself, changing tone. "I didn't mean to. You know that." But Adam didn't answer. He stared at her with an expression of disbelief. The woman he'd married, the one he had brought into his daughter's life, stood in front of him not with remorse, but with excuses. A nurse appeared at the door then, calling Adam's name. He turned away without another word and followed her. Inside the small hospital room, Lily lay under cool blankets, an 4 in her arm, a monitor beeping steadily beside her. Her face was flushed but peaceful. She was awake, barely. "Daddy," she whispered. Adam came to her side instantly, brushing her damp curls from her face. "I'm here, sweetie. I'm right here." She reached for his hand. "Don't let her take me again." Adam swallowed hard. His voice cracked as he kissed her forehead. "She won't. I promise you, she won't." When he returned to the waiting room some time later, Vanessa was gone. Rosa was still seated, now holding a cup of water, eyes red from silent crying. Adam sat beside her. "She woke up?" He nodded. "She asked for you. She remembers everything." Rosa's eyes filled again, but she bit her lip to keep from sobbing. "She said you saved her." "She's the one who held on," Rosa said. I just got there in time. Adam looked ahead for a long moment before speaking again. I need to see the security footage, he said. If what you say is true, I can't let this go. It is true. I believe you. But I need to see it. He stood, dialing a number on his phone. Vanessa hadn't just left Lily in a car, she had lied. And in doing so, she had risked the life of a child who had already lost one parent. The hospital released Lily the next morning, with instructions for rest and hydration. Adam carried her to the car himself. Rosa sat in the back with her, holding her hand all the way home. That evening, Adam requested the footage from the mall's security office. It was a long process, involving multiple calls and a formal request. But the manager, sympathetic after hearing what happened, agreed to expedite it. 2 days later, the USB drive arrived. Adam didn't even wait to sit down. He plugged it into his laptop in the kitchen, with Rosa at the table across from him. The screen flickered. There it was. The SUV pulled into the parking space. Vanessa stepped out, alone. Her phone pressed to her ear, her other hand adjusting her sunglasses. She locked the doors, glanced briefly at her reflection in the window, then walked away. She never looked back. Not once. The footage showed her entering the mall, laughing into her phone. No hesitation. No confusion. Adam leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. The timestamp showed Lily had been inside the locked car for over 1 hour and 23 minutes before Rosa arrived. There was no misunderstanding. Vanessa hadn't forgotten. She hadn't been distracted. She had chosen. Adam closed the laptop and rested his forehead in his hand. Call the police? Rosa asked softly. He didn't answer right away. No, he said finally. Not yet. But I will talk to her. And she's never coming near Lily again. That night, he changed the locks on the house. He notified his attorney. And when he tried calling Vanessa, her number was disconnected. The next morning, she was gone from every trace of his life, and had taken something with her. The days following Lily's hospitalization passed like slow-burning embers under Adam's skin. The summer heat, which once meant weekend outings and backyard sprinklers, now carried a weight that pressed against the windows of their home, a suffocating reminder of what could have been lost. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy and still. The air conditioning hummed, the curtains remained drawn, and every clock tick seemed louder than usual. Lily had barely spoken since returning home. She slept most of the time, her body still regaining strength, her spirit withdrawn behind cautious glances and quiet silences. Rosa stayed close to her, cooking simple meals, humming lullabies in Spanish, and rubbing her back when nightmares woke her in the middle of the night. She never forced Lily to talk. She simply waited, her presence a constant anchor. Adam, on the other hand, had become a man divided. He spent hours pacing his office, making phone calls to banks, lawyers, and security consultants. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand how he had let a woman like Vanessa into their lives. He scoured through emails and credit card statements, looking for signs, clues he might have missed. The truth was, he hadn't missed them. He had ignored them. 3 days after the incident, Adam received a notification from the security company managing his estate. An alarm had been triggered, not at the main house, but in the small guest house at the back of the property. The one Vanessa had occasionally used as a personal dressing space. He rushed out, taking the side path through the garden, Rosa's voice calling behind him to be careful. The heat outside was unbearable, the kind that stuck to the skin and made the air taste like metal. He reached the door and entered the code. Inside, the guest house was cool. Undisturbed. Except for the open drawer on the vanity. Inside it, Adam found an empty velvet box. He recognized it immediately. It had once held a pair of earrings passed down from his grandmother, worth over $70,000. He opened the closet. Several designer handbags were missing. A suitcase was gone. Vanessa hadn't just disappeared. She had taken what she wanted. He called the police that afternoon to report the theft. 2 officers arrived by early evening, clipboard in hand, formal but sympathetic. Adam gave a statement, listed the missing items, provided Vanessa's full name and last known phone number, and shared the security footage from the mall. When they asked if he wished to press charges for the incident with Lily, he hesitated. "I want her out of our lives," he said. "But right now, I just want to make sure my daughter feels safe." They nodded, told him they'd open a report, and left. But that night, Adam couldn't sleep. He sat at the edge of Lily's bed, watching her chest rise and fall. She had curled into Rosa's side, her fingers loosely wrapped around the hem of the woman's blouse. Rosa looked up at Adam and whispered, "She's healing. Slowly. But she's still afraid." "I should have seen it," he said. "I should have known who Vanessa was." "You wanted to believe in something good again," Rosa said, brushing Lily's hair back. "That's not a crime. It almost cost Lily her life." Rosa didn't respond. There was no comfort for that. Only time and trust, both of which had been damaged beyond easy repair. The next morning, Rosa noticed something strange while folding laundry. One of Lily's small sneakers, the pair with the GPS tracker, had been moved from the hallway basket to the laundry pile, even though it hadn't been worn since the day of the incident. Curious, she inspected it. The tracker inside the sole was missing. She went to Adam immediately. "She knew," Rosa said, holding the shoe out. "Vanessa. She must have realized there was a tracker in here." Adam examined it. The stitching had been tampered with. "She took it out," he murmured. "She knew someone was watching." That night, Adam began contacting private investigators. He needed to find Vanessa. Not to confront her, not yet, but to make sure she never had the chance to get near Lily again. In the days that followed, he learned how little he truly knew about her. Vanessa Delacroix wasn't her legal name. Her birth name was Vanessa Lee Bennett. She had changed it after a civil suit involving an ex-boyfriend in Florida, who accused her of forging documents to gain access to his estate during a health crisis. The case was dropped after he failed to appear in court. Another man in Chicago had filed a restraining order against her. In both cases, Vanessa had emerged unscathed. No formal charges. No paper trail that stuck. Adam felt sick. She had done this before. Not the child endangerment, not that he knew of, but the manipulation, the exploitation. She moved from place to place, reinventing herself, always aligning with wealth and opportunity, always disappearing before the damage caught up. He passed the information along to the detective handling the theft report. But deep down, Adam knew it wouldn't be enough. Vanessa was skilled. She had done this dance before. The only difference now was Lily. And that made everything different. The summer heat reached its peak 1 week after the incident. The news cycle ran a story about a toddler who died after being left in a minivan 2 states away. Adam couldn't bring himself to watch it. Lily had started drawing again, slowly, mostly horses and stars, sometimes stick figures with curly hair. She had drawn one of Rosa and labeled it, "My Grandma." When Rosa saw it, she turned away so no one could see her tears. Then, one afternoon, Adam walked into the living room and found Lily standing at the window, staring out toward the driveway. "Do you think she'll come back?" she asked quietly. Adam knelt beside her. "No," he said. "She won't come back here." "What if she does?" He paused, then took her small hand in his. "If she ever does, I'll be right here. Rosa will be right here. You'll never be alone again. Ever." Lily looked up at him, her eyes still tired but trusting. "Promise?" "I promise." Outside, the heat shimmered off the sidewalk. But inside, for the first time in days, Adam felt something close to cool resolve. He wasn't just a man recovering from a mistake anymore. He was a father rebuilding a wall around his child, brick by careful brick. Vanessa had lit a fire that nearly consumed everything. But now, Adam would make sure it never touched them again. The heatwave had broken the next morning. A thin veil of gray clouds hovered over Seattle, casting the city in a cool, sullen tone. But inside the Whitmore residence, the tension remained thick, not from temperature, but from anticipation, of what would come next, of what was still missing, and of what Adam had begun to suspect was only just beginning. It had been 10 days since Vanessa vanished, 10 days since Lily's body had been pulled from that car. And while the bruises and dehydration had healed, something more subtle lingered in the child. Rosa noticed it in her silence when being buckled into any car. Adam saw it in her sudden tears at night, when she believed no one was watching. Her trauma hadn't passed, it had simply gone quiet, buried beneath the surface, waiting for the wrong moment to resurface. Adam had made the house a fortress. Security upgrades had been installed, including new cameras and panic buttons in every room. Rosa had full access to everything. Adam insisted. She had earned more than trust, she had earned authority. But none of it gave him peace. Because Vanessa was still out there. And she had not only walked away with family heirlooms, she had walked away untouched by consequence. Until now. Late on a Thursday evening, as Rosa was putting Lily to bed with a warm chamomile tea, Adam received a call from the private investigator he'd hired the previous week. "I found her," the man said. Adam stood from his desk slowly. "Where?" "Palm Springs. Staying at a gated community under the name Vanessa Lee. She's driving the same BMW you registered in her name 6 months ago." "I got visuals." Adam's jaw tightened. "And the jewelry?" "Too early to confirm. But I have reason to believe she's sold some of it already." 2 pieces matched a consignment record from a boutique in Los Angeles. The rest might still be in her possession. Adam let out a slow breath. "Do you want me to approach her?" the investigator asked. "No. Not yet. Just keep watching. I want to know everyone she talks to. Everyone she meets. And if she tries to leave." "You got it." Adam ended the call and sat in silence for several minutes. The idea of confronting Vanessa directly pulled at him like gravity, but something colder stopped him, something more deliberate. This couldn't just be about rage. It had to be about resolution. The next day, Rosa brought up the shattered window. She had returned from a walk with Lily, and the two of them were laughing, for the first time in days, when she noticed a small glint of glass still lodged inside the rear door of the SUV. She asked Adam if it could be replaced. He had already scheduled the repair, but something about the mention of that broken glass unsettled him. "It's strange," he said later that night, staring out at the vehicle parked in the driveway. "That piece of her life, that trauma, it's sitting right there. And every time I walk past it, I see her body on that gurney. I hear Rosa's voice screaming her name." Rosa, who was folding laundry nearby, said without turning, "It's not your fault." "Maybe not," Adam answered. "But I let it in. I let her in. No one forced her to lie. Or leave a child in the heat. That was her. Not you." Adam didn't respond. But that night, he barely slept. And by morning, he had made a decision. He flew to Palm Springs. He didn't tell Rosa. He didn't tell Lily. He left early, before sunrise, and arrived at a small private airport just outside the city by 10 o'clock in the morning. The investigator met him at the edge of a gated community, where palm trees lined the streets like sentries and golf carts hummed quietly behind hedges. "She goes to brunch every Friday at a place called Delano's," the investigator said, showing him photos taken the day before. "She sits at the outdoor table. Orders champagne. Talks to whoever's willing to listen." Adam stared at the pictures. Vanessa was smiling in every one. He didn't want to confront her there, not in public, not without control. So he waited. That night, she returned to her temporary rental house, tucked behind bougainvillea and white stucco walls. The driveway was empty. The car gone. "She's at the store," the investigator said, scanning a live feed from a traffic camera nearby. "You've got maybe 20 minutes." Adam walked through the unlocked gate, past the patio, and into the house. She had made it hers already, candles lit on side tables, jazz playing softly from a Bluetooth speaker, a chilled glass of rose left on the counter. He moved through the living room carefully, not touching anything, until he reached the study. And there it was. The jewelry box. Open. Several familiar pieces inside, a bracelet belonging to his grandmother, a necklace Claire once wore to an anniversary dinner, a ring that had been meant for Lily someday. He didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone, snapped photos of everything, then removed the items and placed them into a velvet pouch. Before leaving, he found a small envelope in the drawer with a handwritten note inside. Palm Springs isn't so bad after all. There was no signature. Just those words, written in her delicate script. He left the house as quietly as he had entered. By the time Vanessa returned, he was back at the hotel, reviewing the photos with the investigator. "I've got what I need," Adam said. "We turn it over to the police. Let them handle it now. You're not going to press charges yourself?" Adam shook his head. "I want her gone. I want her exposed. But I won't spend another minute in a courtroom reliving what she did to Lily." The investigator nodded. "Understood." Back in Seattle, Adam arrived home just after midnight. Rosa was waiting up for him, a mug of tea in her hands. "I know where you went," she said gently. "I had to see it for myself. And she's everything we feared. And worse." He handed her the pouch. She opened it slowly, tears springing to her eyes. "She sold some of it. But not all. She kept the most sentimental pieces," Rosa said. "Of course she did. That's how they hurt you. They don't just take money. They take meaning." Adam didn't sleep that night. Instead, he watched over Lily as she slept, her small hand curled beneath her cheek. And in the morning, the doorbell rang. It was the police. They had questions about the break-in. Vanessa had filed a report. But this time, Adam was ready. He handed them the photos. The consignment records. The tracking data. The security camera footage from the mall. He told them everything, calmly, completely. When the officers left, Rosa stepped beside him at the doorway. "So now what?" she asked. Adam looked out at the quiet street, the sun rising slowly over the trees. "Now," he said, "we let the truth do what it does best." And behind them, the SUV sat still in the driveway, window repaired, car cleaned, but for a single shard of glass that had fallen between the seat cushions, missed by every vacuum. A reminder. One he would never forget. The quiet that settled over the Whitmore home was not one of peace, but one of anticipation. The kind of silence that builds before a storm, heavy and still. Adam found himself existing in a state of constant alertness, not from fear that Vanessa would return, but from the certainty that the consequences she had set into motion were still far from over. The police had launched a formal investigation. Adam had given them everything, the photos of the stolen jewelry, the evidence of her using an alias, the consignment records, and even a copy of the footage showing her walking away from the car where Lily had been trapped. Legally, it was enough to begin building a case, for theft, for child endangerment, possibly for fraud. But justice, he quickly discovered, moved slowly. And when money and manipulation were involved, it often stumbled. What troubled Adam more than the legal system's pace was Vanessa's silence. She had not reached out. No threats. No denials. No apologies. Nothing. It was as if she had evaporated into a new identity once again, content to leave behind a trail of damage and unanswered questions. But Adam knew better. Silence, in her case, was strategy. She was waiting, either to see what he would do, or for an opportunity to strike again. Meanwhile, at home, Lily had returned to her usual routine with cautious steps. She had resumed school, though only half-days for now, and under Rosa's watchful presence. Rosa dropped her off, picked her up, and remained in the classroom hallway while she learned. The teacher, a kind woman named Mrs. Ellison, had been briefed on the situation and maintained a protective eye on the child without making her feel like a spectacle. One afternoon, after school, Lily sat in the backyard with Rosa, picking flowers from the edge of the garden and weaving them into a small crown. She placed it gently on Rosa's head and whispered, "You're my flower queen." Rosa laughed softly, touched by the innocence, but she could still see the weight in Lily's eyes. Trauma didn't vanish because the sun came out or because adults said it was over. It lingered, like a shadow at the edges of happiness. Inside the house, Adam was in his office speaking to his attorney. "She filed for spousal support," the lawyer said flatly. Adam closed his eyes, his jaw tightening. "On what grounds?" "She claims emotional distress, disruption of lifestyle, and sudden abandonment. She's citing the move from New York, the loss of marital property, which, by the way, includes the jewelry she stole, and emotional damage from your erratic behavior following the incident with your daughter." Adam could hardly believe what he was hearing. "She almost killed Lily." "I know. And we have evidence. But family court doesn't operate on logic alone. These kinds of cases get messy. And she's lawyered up, aggressively. You need to be prepared." "For what?" "Paying her? For the possibility that a judge might grant temporary support, at least until the criminal case develops. She's playing for delay. That's her game." Adam hung up without responding. His hands were trembling, but not from fear, from fury. Somehow, despite everything she had done, Vanessa had found a way to turn the system into a weapon. Again. That evening, he met with Rosa in the kitchen after Lily had gone to bed. "I need you to hear something," he said, sitting across from her. He pulled out his phone and played a short audio file, a recording taken from the PI's surveillance in Palm Springs. Vanessa's voice, unmistakable. "He thinks I forgot the girl. Please. That kid was a walking liability. I needed a break. I didn't think the old woman would show up like some kind of hero. But whatever. Now he thinks I'm a monster, and I'll make him pay for that." Rosa sat still, her expression frozen. "She said that?" she asked after a long pause. "She did. And you have this on record?" "Yes. It was recorded legally, in a public area. I'm handing it over to the police tomorrow." Rosa stared at the wall, her fingers curled around the edge of her chair. Then she stood and walked to the window, looking out into the night. "She meant it," she said. "Leaving Lily. It wasn't an accident." "No. It wasn't." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Rosa turned back to him. "You know what you have to do." "I do." The next day, Adam returned to the precinct with the recording and added it to the growing file of evidence. The detective in charge, a composed woman in her 40s named Officer Herrera, listened to the audio twice before speaking. "This changes things," she said. "Up until now, it was negligence. Now we're looking at intent. Will you press charges? We're going to issue a warrant. But she's slippery. If she crosses state lines again under a different name, we may need to escalate it to federal authorities." "Do it." Adam walked out of the station feeling a weight shift inside him. Not lifted, not yet, but moved. For the first time, it felt like there was a crack forming in Vanessa's wall of lies. A way in. That weekend, Rosa took Lily to the community center for a children's art exhibit. Adam stayed home, trying to catch up on emails and meetings he had postponed since the incident. While going through his inbox, he noticed a flagged message from one of his financial advisors. It read, "Suspicious activity on former joint account, transfer attempt blocked. Please confirm." Adam clicked the link. A transfer for $40,000 had been initiated from the account he had shared with Vanessa before she vanished, an account that was supposed to be frozen. The attempt had failed, but it had left a trace. He called the bank immediately. She used a VPN, but the IP pinged from Las Vegas, the representative told him. Adam leaned back in his chair, feeling the threads begin to connect. "She's not staying still anymore," he said aloud. she's on the move again. He called the PI. She's left Palm Springs, the man confirmed. No sign of her since yesterday. I've got people watching major hubs, she may be trying to get out of the country. Adam's heart raced. He wasn't worried about the money anymore. He was worried about justice slipping away once more, like it had for her other victims. That night, after Lily was asleep, Rosa handed Adam a drawing the girl had made at the art exhibit. It showed 3 stick figures, one tall man, one older woman with a flower crown, and a small girl with curly hair. They were holding hands in front of a house with a big sun in the sky. Above them, in childlike handwriting, was a single sentence. Safe now. Forever. Adam held the paper for a long time. And then he made a decision. If the law couldn't move fast enough, he would. Vanessa had run for the last time. Now, it was time to stop her. Adam could barely catch his breath when Officer Herrera called back. She had watched the footage, listened to the audio, and read through the investigation reports. What you have is strong, she told him. But we need more. More witness statements. More corroboration. We need to bring this home. He hung up and looked at Rosa. Her face was quiet, a mixture of relief and wariness, like she knew the danger wasn't past. The day after that, the detective arranged for a meeting with the mall's security director. Adam, Rosa, and Mrs. Ellison, Lily's teacher, were present. The director, a middle-aged man with silvering hair and kind eyes, showed them the full set of tapes, not just the one where Vanessa locked the car and walked away, but all surrounding footage, the path she took from her car to the entrance, the clocks in every frame, people she passed, the heat rising in the car. There was no hesitation, no sign of distress on Vanessa's face until she noticed the commotion by the vehicle. The tape confirmed that little Lily was alone, locked in the locked SUV for well over 80 minutes, rising temperature inside, internal air stagnating. Mrs. Ellison spoke up. I talked with Lily this morning. She remembers being alone, unable to call, frightened. She thought no one knew she was there. Her voice was quiet but carrying weight. Rosa squeezed Lily's hand, crouching beside her. Lily's eyes filled. I was very scared, she whispered. I thought Mommy forgot me. Her voice so small it almost broke the silence. Adam's heart clenched. He turned toward the security director. Is there any way to track Vanessa's phone during that time? The records, location? He asked. The director nodded. We can request logs from her carrier. If we have the warrant, which I believe Detective Herrera is preparing. Detective Herrera confirmed that evening that she'd secured subpoenas for Vanessa's phone records, her recent bank transactions, and her alias identities. Once all of that comes in, she said, we have enough to present to the district attorney. Child endangerment, criminal mistreatment, theft. Possibly fraud. Her gaze met Adam's. We have to act before she disappears again. That night, in the quiet of the living room, Adam looked at Lily's drawing again, 3 stick figures holding hands. He traced the small face of the older woman with the flower crown, Rosa, and the little figure of Lily. He whispered, thank you. Rosa looked at him from the couch. Her eyes still raw, but proud. You did everything right from here, she said. Adam nodded, but the knot of guilt in his chest wouldn't release. He thought of Vanessa's calm steps, her laughter into her phone at the mall, her assuming Lily had somehow stayed with her, when the truth was she had walked away. He thought of Lily's face when she woke up, wet with tears, voice hushed, calling for Daddy. Overshadowed by guilt, there was also resolve. The next morning, as Lily was still asleep, Adam's phone buzzed. It was Vanessa, or someone using her number. A text message, I'm sorry you think I would do that. You don't know the whole story. He froze. His fingers hovered over the screen. He thought of pressing delete, ignore. Instead, he forwarded the message to Officer Herrera, adding a note, see attached text. She's contacting me again. Officer Herrera replied, good. It helps build pattern. Don't respond. We're tracking locations. Rosa stood in the kitchen doorway. Don't respond, she said. Let them handle it. Adam exhaled. For good or bad, her message made things more real. More dangerous. Over the following days, transcripts of phone records arrived. Location pings placed Vanessa at boutiques in Malibu, flights booked under names that resembled hers but altered by one letter, all tied to addresses traced to shell companies in Nevada. The bank transactions showed that some of the jewelry pieces had been sold, others pawned. Some funds had moved offshore. One evening, Adam and Rosa reviewed a map flagged by the private investigator. Vanessa had bought a one-way ticket from LAX to Vancouver, Canada, not British Columbia, but Vancouver, Washington, under the alias name. It was scheduled for the next morning. Adam stared at the screen. She's trying to cross state lines. Using a name close enough to avoid suspicion. She's running, Rosa said quietly. We can't let her get away, Adam said. He picked up his phone and dialed Detective Herrera. Hours later, when Vanessa's flight should have crossed the border, the detective confirmed that authorities intercepted travel logs. She never boarded the flight. Her alias name had been flagged, and she was being looked for. Cameras at the border crossing had captured a woman matching her description, but nothing conclusive yet. Lily slept upstairs. Rosa watched over her. Adam couldn't sleep. He paced the study. Every sound, the wind, the distant traffic, felt like it might be Vanessa trying to come back, trying to slip in through half-truths and regretful words. At sunrise, Adam made one more call. To the press. He released a statement, explaining that Lily had survived, that they believed Vanessa endangered her, and that he was working with law enforcement. He wanted people to know the truth, dissuade others from making the same mistake. He also requested donations to a children's safety fund in Rosa's name. The story broke that afternoon. Interviews, articles, social media threads. Thousands of people shared Lily's drawing. Many sent messages, "Thank you, Rosa, no child should ever feel abandoned." Adam read some, deleted others. He focused on Lily, reading the messages aloud to her when she asked about what the reporter said. Days later, a subpoena arrived for Vanessa to appear in district court. A courtroom date was set. Judge Magistrate Owen scheduled the hearing for the case. Charges: criminal mistreatment in the second degree, theft, fraud for identity misuse, and possibly abandonment. Probate issues too, for the property she claimed. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Rosa said, "You know, these cameras don't lie. They've shown everyone what it looks like when someone walks away from their child." Adam kissed Lily's forehead, looked at Rosa. "They've shown the truth," he said. Lily stirred in her sleep. For the first time, when Adam turned off the light, there was no trembling in her hand when he left the room. For a moment, the house held its breath, the kind of calm that comes when the worst is no longer uncertain. The cameras had told the story. Now it was time for everyone else to see it. Adam hadn't opened the antique oak cabinet in his study in months. It stood beneath a window overlooking the back garden, once used to store items he considered precious: photographs, family letters, Claire's journals, a silver music box Lily had adored as a toddler. But today, it was the coffer that mattered. The small, velvet-lined safe tucked behind old files and framed certificates, the one Vanessa had once asked about, curiously, with the kind of interest that had, at the time, seemed like admiration. It was gone. Not the cabinet, the coffer itself. He stared at the empty indent it left behind, the dustless outline like a phantom of the past. Adam crouched and pulled back the layers of old envelopes, checking every shelf. But he already knew. He didn't remember opening that space since before Vanessa moved out. That box had contained a few things that weren't just valuable, but irreplaceable: his late wife's locket, a pair of heirloom cufflinks, and the original will Claire had handwritten, before Lily was even born, leaving a few sentimental items in her name, in case of her death. He stood slowly, heart racing. His first instinct was to call Rosa. But she was at Lily's school, volunteering for Art Week. He didn't want to panic her. Instead, he reached for his phone and called the investigator. She took the coffer, Adam said, once the line connected. From the cabinet in my study. It's gone. The man didn't respond for a moment, then asked, do you have a list of everything that was inside? Not an official one, no. But I know what she took. Anything financial? No. Sentimental. But that's worse in a way. The investigator promised to cross-reference local pawn shop inventories and recent online sales. She'll try to liquidate it if she's desperate, he said. Especially if she thinks the legal wall is closing in. Adam hung up, feeling the silence of the study close in around him. He looked down at the bare indent again and whispered, that box belonged to my daughter. But even as fury built in his chest, another emotion crept in, something colder. It was the realization that Vanessa hadn't just tried to exploit them financially. She had tried to erase traces of the life that existed before her. Later that day, as Rosa returned with Lily, Adam pulled her aside. She took it. The coffer from the study. The one with Claire's things. Rosa went still. The jewelry box? Yes. She asked about that once, Rosa said slowly. I didn't think anything of it. She said Claire probably had kept secrets in there, that maybe it was time to let go of the past. Adam clenched his jaw. It wasn't just about the money. She wanted to own everything Claire left behind. Rosa nodded, face hardening. And now she's trying to cash it all out. That night, as they sat in the living room, Lily brought over a small tin box and sat it on Adam's lap. It was the box where she kept her own tiny treasures, plastic rings, birthday cards, drawings. She opened it carefully and pulled out a faded photo. It was Claire, holding Lily at barely a year old, smiling into the camera with the garden behind her. Lily held it out. I still remember her voice, she said softly. Sometimes I forget the sound, but then it comes back. Adam took the photo, blinked away the sting in his eyes, and pulled Lily close. She would be proud of you, he whispered. So proud. She would be proud of Rosa too, Lily added. Rosa, sitting nearby, looked down quickly, saying nothing. The next day, the investigator called. I think we found her. Again. Or at least her trail. Where? She's back near Seattle. Briefly. She rented a car using a fake name, Felicity Graham, but the facial match and rental payment were traced to her last known card. She may be staying at a short-term rental just outside of Bellevue. Adam's breath caught. She came back? Probably to pick something up. Or drop something off. Do you have an address? The investigator gave it to him. Adam didn't think. He drove there himself. The house was a beige two-story in a quiet cul-de-sac. Curtains drawn, no sign of movement. Adam parked a block away and waited. He didn't want to storm in. He didn't want confrontation. He just wanted confirmation. An hour passed. Then a black rental car pulled into the driveway. Vanessa stepped out. Her hair was shorter, dyed darker, but her posture, rigid and calculated, was the same. She wore sunglasses, and though she looked over her shoulder, she didn't spot Adam. She entered the house with a tote bag slung over one shoulder. 15 minutes later, she emerged with a small metal case, the coffer. Adam's heart pounded. He snapped a photo from his phone, clearly capturing her holding the box. Then he called the detective. I'm watching her right now, he said. She has the stolen coffer. Don't approach, Herrera warned. We'll send someone. Stay where you are. Vanessa drove off, and Adam tailed her at a distance. She took the freeway, heading toward the edge of downtown Seattle. Finally, she pulled into a parking garage near a luxury condo building. She got out, carrying the coffer and a slim briefcase. Then she disappeared into the building. An hour later, a team of officers arrived and entered the unit she had accessed using a rental key. Vanessa was arrested on site without incident. The coffer was found intact, along with 2 fake IDs, multiple consignment receipts, and one of Claire's original journals, marked for shredding. The news reached Adam at home. "She's in custody," Officer Herrera confirmed. "Officially charged. Theft, endangerment, identity fraud. We'll be contacting you for court dates." Adam closed his eyes. Not in relief, but in release. He went upstairs and sat at Lily's bedside as she slept, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't wonder what Vanessa would try next. She had no more places to run. The safe haven she'd carved out by manipulation and lies had been emptied. And what remained, what truly mattered, was still right here, asleep in a room filled with sunlight and safety. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and cold air. It was early, and outside the tall windows of the King County Courthouse, a slow drizzle turned the city into a watercolor of gray and silver. Inside, Adam sat stiffly at the front row beside his attorney, eyes fixed on the double doors that led to the defendant's side. Rosa sat behind him, quietly gripping the edge of her coat, and Lily, thankfully, was not there. He'd insisted she stay home, protected from the weight of a room like this. The bailiff entered, followed by the attorneys, then the judge. Everyone stood. Then came the moment Adam had waited for. Vanessa was escorted into the courtroom in a dark suit, her wrists free but her posture oddly rehearsed, as if she had practiced appearing remorseful. Her eyes swept the courtroom and stopped on Adam. A flash of something passed through her gaze, not regret, not shame. Something sharper. She sat beside her attorney and whispered something. He didn't look at her as he took his seat. The judge cleared her throat. "We are here today to review the charges brought forth against Vanessa Lee Bennett, also known under aliases Vanessa Delacroix and Felicity Graham, in the matter of criminal endangerment, theft of private property, and fraudulent identity usage. Preliminary motions have been submitted. The court will now hear opening statements." Adam didn't flinch. But inside, every word dug deeper into the truth he had been building for months. Vanessa's attorney spoke first. His tone was smooth, practiced, infuriating. "My client has acknowledged poor judgment," he said. "She admits to negligence in the incident involving her stepdaughter. But we argue that this was not malicious. It was a lapse, one compounded by emotional strain and a sudden adjustment to unfamiliar responsibilities. As for the matter of the jewelry and the coffer in question, my client believed, wrongly, that these were gifted to her during the course of her marriage. She has since returned the items willingly." Returned? Adam clenched his fists under the table. His own attorney stood and delivered the facts. The mall footage. The timestamps. The recovered GPS data. The bank transfers. The aliases. The pawn shop receipts. The coffer retrieval. The private surveillance recordings. And most damning, the audio, Vanessa admitting she had intentionally left Lily in the car to get a break from the child. When the clip was played in court, even the stenographer looked up. "Your Honor," Adam's attorney said firmly, "this was no mistake. It was calculated indifference, cloaked in sophistication. The child was 6 years old. Left locked in a car during a summer heat wave. And this woman, now standing before you, walked away. Not because she forgot, but because she could." Vanessa's attorney tried to suppress a rebuttal, but the judge held up her hand. "That's enough for today," she said. "We'll reconvene once the court has reviewed the full set of evidence and determined whether to move forward with formal charges or accept a plea deal." As the room emptied, Vanessa turned slightly toward Adam. He expected a scowl, or a smirk. Instead, she smiled, the kind of smile that had once charmed investors and party guests. But it was vacant. Tired. Outside, the drizzle had turned to steady rain. Adam walked in silence beside Rosa as they crossed the marble steps. He had thought the court would bring closure. It didn't. Not yet. "Do you think she'll go to prison?" Rosa asked, pulling her scarf tighter. "I don't know," Adam replied. "But I know she won't come near Lily again." At home, he found Lily sitting at the kitchen table, coloring beside her tutor. The moment she saw him, she jumped from her chair and ran into his arms. "Daddy, you're home early." "I missed you," he said, lifting her up and kissing her cheek. That evening, Rosa brought out a photo album Adam hadn't seen in years. They sat together in the living room, Lily nestled between them, and turned through the pages. There was Claire, in the garden. Rosa at the old house. A younger Adam with his arms around both of them. "Who's that?" Lily asked, pointing at a picture of Adam and Claire on a mountain trail. "That's me and your mommy," he said. "We took that on our honeymoon." "She looks like a princess," Lily whispered. She was. The following week, Adam received an envelope in the mail, no return address, but inside was a photocopy of a court filing. Vanessa had submitted an emergency motion to request partial financial restitution for emotional distress. In simpler terms, she wanted money in exchange for dropping certain defenses. It was her last move, not a legal one, but a strategic one. His attorney reviewed it and sighed. This is her way of getting a payout without going through the full trial. She knows she's cornered. She's trying to settle. She doesn't deserve anything, Adam said. Not a dollar. You're right. But if you refuse the settlement, you'll have to go through another court date. More delays. Then we wait. He would not pay silence. 2 days later, the district attorney confirmed the official charges were moving forward. Vanessa's request was denied. A date was set for the formal hearing. Adam didn't celebrate. He simply exhaled and closed the file. That night, Rosa entered his office with something in her hand, a small slip of paper she had found tucked inside one of Claire's old books while cleaning. It was a letter. Written by Claire. To whoever finds this, if this family ever finds itself without me, I hope you know that love will still live here. Not in the things I leave behind, but in the people I trusted with my heart. Adam read it 3 times before setting it gently on the desk. He didn't speak. He just reached across the desk and took Rosa's hand. "Thank you," he whispered. In the days that followed, the house began to feel different. Lighter. Not because Vanessa was gone, or because the courts were finally catching up. But because Adam had started to rebuild the pieces that mattered. Rosa remained at the center of their home, more than ever. Lily smiled more often. And in the background, the past kept whispering its truths, not to haunt them, but to remind them of who they had always been, before betrayal arrived. The past had its trails. And Adam was finally ready to leave them behind. The following Thursday afternoon unfolded with the kind of stillness that had become precious to Adam. The house was quiet, not sterile, but peaceful. Lily was upstairs with Rosa, painting on the floor of her room, and the scent of fresh lemon from Rosa's cleaning spray still lingered in the hallway. Adam sat at the kitchen counter, reviewing a draft of a safety awareness blog post his communications team had asked him to sign off on. It had nothing to do with business and everything to do with fatherhood. That alone made him pause, read it again, and revise it line by line. The world was watching now, and what he said mattered more than ever. Then the doorbell rang. It was a slow, deliberate sound, not urgent but not casual either. Adam checked the front window out of habit. No delivery truck. No neighbor. Just a dark gray rental car idling at the edge of the driveway. He opened the door. The man standing on the porch wore a charcoal blazer over an untucked dress shirt. He held a leather briefcase and a file tucked under one arm. His face was familiar, not because Adam had seen it before, but because it had a certain professional symmetry he associated with lawyers, or journalists, or people trained to conceal intent behind politeness. "Mr. Whitmore?" the man asked. "Yes? My name is Daniel Ross. I represent Vanessa Bennett's legal counsel, though I'd like to make clear that I'm here in a private capacity. May I speak with you?" Adam didn't step aside. "About what?" The man's tone was smooth. "There's been a development that you may want to be aware of. Not in court, and not in the press. Something personal." Adam's first instinct was to shut the door. But curiosity, and that buried sense of unfinished business pushed him to allow it. 5 minutes, he said, stepping back. That's all you get. Ross entered and glanced around the foyer as if cataloging the space. You have a beautiful home. I'm sure that's not why you're here. No. Of course not. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a document. I've been retained, unofficially, to help resolve some outstanding matters involving Ms. Bennett's previous legal disputes. As part of that effort, something surfaced that you may not have been aware of. A settlement agreement from her relationship prior to yours. Adam narrowed his eyes. You're talking about the man in Florida? The one who dropped the civil suit? Ross nodded. That's the one. It turns out he wasn't the only one. There were at least 3 others. One of them left behind a deposition that wasn't submitted into court records because the case never reached trial. But it contains some disturbing parallels. He handed Adam the folder. Inside were typed pages, statements from another man, a software consultant from Chicago. The details were chillingly similar. Vanessa, then using another variation of her name, had moved into his home after a brief relationship, convinced him to let her handle personal financial tasks, and gradually siphoned funds into an account she controlled. When he began asking questions, she threatened to accuse him of emotional abuse. He backed off, fearing reputation damage. Eventually, he filed a restraining order, which was granted, quietly, without media attention. She has a history, Ross said, of targeting men in grief or emotional transition. You weren't the first. And I don't think you'll be the last, unless this goes public. Adam's grip tightened on the paper. Why are you showing me this? Because she's trying to negotiate a settlement with several courts at once, and to do that, she needs one thing. Silence. From you. Adam's expression darkened. She already knows she's not getting that. I figured as much. Ross packed the folder again. But I thought you should know, there's another layer to her plan. She had a private storage unit in Los Angeles. It's been seized by order of a judge in a separate case. Inside were documents tied to a trust she attempted to set up using your name. Fraudulent. But detailed. She was trying to build a fallback plan, to pose as a surviving spouse entitled to long-term support, should something happen to you. Adam stared at him. You're saying she was preparing to outlive me? I'm saying she doesn't play by moral rules. Only legal ones. When those fail, she improvises. The room felt colder. Ross adjusted his tie. You're not the only one still cleaning up after her. Adam looked past the man, toward the staircase. Upstairs, Lily's voice floated down, soft and laughing. Rosa's reply came a second later, warm and steady. I want her gone, Adam said. Not just out of our lives, I want her exposed. Every story. Every lie. Ross gave a slow nod. Then keep speaking. And don't settle. I wasn't planning to. As Ross left, Adam stood for a long time by the window, watching the rental car disappear around the bend. The silence returned, but it wasn't peaceful now. It was bracing. He felt the enormity of what Vanessa had done, not just to him, but to others. A pattern, stretching back years. A trail of men, silenced by embarrassment or shame, never realizing they were part of a larger game. That evening, he typed a long email to his attorney, requesting that Ross's materials be submitted as supplemental evidence in the case. He also asked for guidance on reaching out to the other victims. They may not want to speak, he wrote, but if they do, I'll be ready to stand with them. Later, after Lily was asleep and Rosa had gone to bed, Adam returned to the study and opened Claire's final journal. He hadn't read it since the night Vanessa was arrested. Now, with the house still and the lights low, he turned the pages slowly, as if listening for her voice in the ink. Halfway through, he found something he had forgotten. A line written in her delicate script. If anything ever happens to me, I hope you remember this, love is not about who makes you feel alive. It's about who stays when you're broken. He closed the journal. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the hedges. Somewhere in the distance, a car passed. But inside the Whitmore home, Adam stood still, no longer haunted, only preparing. Because the truth was coming. And this time, he would not let it arrive quietly. Autumn arrived with a wind that carried more than leaves, it carried change. The edges of summer had softened, and the Whitmore home, once marked by turmoil and quiet despair, now pulsed with the steady rhythm of recovery. The case against Vanessa was now moving with force. The DA had formally charged her with multiple counts, and the legal machine was rolling. But while the public and the courts processed the details, Adam's focus had turned fully inward, on Lily, on Rosa, on the life that still remained after everything that had been taken. It was early morning when Adam met with his family lawyer, Mr. Grayson, in the study. They spoke for nearly an hour about next steps, the ongoing legal battle, asset protection, and above all, Lily's security. Grayson was pragmatic and experienced, but even he leaned forward with an expression that bordered on personal concern when he said, "Adam, I know you've been through a storm. But it's time to start thinking long-term. Not just protection. Permanence." Adam knew what that meant before the man even said it. And later that day, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the blank legal document in front of him, the one titled Petition for Sole Legal Custody and Guardianship Succession. His signature line waited, blank and patient. Rosa entered the room with a basket of folded laundry, unaware at first. When she noticed the form, she paused. "You're doing it?" she asked. He looked up at her. "Yes." She walked slowly to the table, set the basket down, and sat across from him. Her eyes were calm but wide. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," Adam said. "I can't predict the future, Rosa. But if something ever happens to me, I need to know Lily has someone who sees her. Who protects her. Who loves her with no conditions." "I already do," she said softly. "I know," he replied. "But now I want it to be real. On paper. I want you to be her legal guardian, not just the one who's always there, but the one who would have the right to keep being there, no matter what." Rosa didn't respond right away. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. Then she reached across the table and touched his arm. "You honor me more than I can say," she whispered. "But I didn't raise her to replace something lost. I raised her because I loved her from the moment I saw her." Adam nodded. "That's why it has to be you." She leaned back, swallowed hard, then nodded once. "Then yes. I accept." They signed the papers together that afternoon. The notary arrived by 4 o'clock. By evening, it was done. Upstairs, Lily sat on the floor surrounded by colored paper and glue sticks. She was making a card for School Heroes Day, but when Rosa entered the room, she paused and reached for something else, a small sheet of cardstock with a lopsided heart drawn in crayon and the words, "I love you, Grandma Rosa," scribbled across the top. She held it out. "Can I give you this early?" Rosa took it slowly. "You can give me anything, mi amor. Daddy said you're going to be my emergency grown-up now. That means if anything ever happens, I'll stay with you." Rosa blinked hard, then smiled. "That's right. But nothing is going to happen. Still, we'll always be ready. Just in case." Lily hugged her tightly, then said, "I feel safer when you're home." That night, Adam found himself alone in his late wife's garden. Claire had designed it herself, the layout, the flower beds, even the bench beneath the magnolia tree. For months after her death, he couldn't come out here. But now, he sat on the bench and looked up at the sky through bare branches, thinking not just of what had been lost but of what was being rebuilt. "Claire," he said aloud. "I think we're going to be okay." The next day, Adam held a press conference outside his company's headquarters. Not as a tech entrepreneur, but as a father. A short speech. No press statements. No branding. Just a few words that spread quickly. "I want to thank everyone who has supported my daughter and me during one of the most difficult seasons of our lives. I made mistakes, serious ones, in who I trusted, and what I let into our home. But I've learned. And we're healing. We will not be silenced by shame, and we will not stop protecting the children who cannot yet protect themselves. That video, posted online, spread like wildfire. In the comments, strangers praised Rosa's courage, Lily's strength, and Adam's humility. Donations poured into the child safety initiative he'd launched in Rosa's name, now officially a non-profit with a single mission: preventing child endangerment in domestic environments. 1 week later, a letter arrived. It came from a national children's organization, notifying Adam that Rosa had been nominated for a Civilian Bravery Award, for her response at the parking garage, for her long-term care of Lily, and for her commitment to the child's recovery. Adam read the letter twice, then handed it to Rosa without a word. She covered her mouth. "I don't deserve this," she said. "You do," Adam said. "And more." The award ceremony was scheduled for December. It would be televised. Lily had already picked out a dress. One afternoon, while driving home from Lily's school, Adam noticed a small protest near a courthouse. A group of women held signs, not against him, but against Vanessa. Former victims who had found the courage to speak after reading his story. Some of them had remained anonymous, others gave interviews. One wrote a blog post titled, "She Did It to Me Too." Adam parked and approached quietly. He didn't want to draw attention, he simply wanted to see. When one of the women recognized him, she walked up and said, "She told me I was paranoid when I accused her of stealing. Told my friends I was emotionally unstable." Adam nodded. "She said something similar about me. But you had the platform to speak," the woman added. "Thank you for using it." He left without giving a name. But he carried that woman's words with him. Later that week, the district attorney informed Adam that Vanessa's legal team had requested a final plea deal, reduced sentence in exchange for a public admission of guilt and financial restitution. It would spare Lily from having to be mentioned in open court. Adam read the proposal carefully. Then he said, "I'll accept. On one condition." The condition was simple: Vanessa would make a public statement, under oath, acknowledging what she had done to Lily and to the other victims. No evasions. No manipulations. Just the truth, documented and permanent. 2 days later, Vanessa appeared in court one last time. Under oath, voice low but clear, she admitted to leaving Lily in the car intentionally, to manipulating Adam for financial gain, to targeting vulnerable individuals for personal benefit. She avoided eye contact. But the words were said. Recorded. Real. And with that, it was over. Adam walked out of the courthouse, the cold autumn wind on his face. Rosa was waiting beside the car. Lily was inside, asleep in the back seat, holding a stuffed fox. She said it out loud, Adam told Rosa. Rosa nodded. Then let that be the last word she ever gets. Adam didn't reply. He simply looked at the woman beside him, and then at the child behind the window, safe and breathing easy. There were no more threats. No more secrets. No more pretending. Now, there was only what came next. It began with an email. An editor from a national news magazine, known for long-form human interest stories, reached out to Adam's assistant, requesting a potential interview. Not about his business ventures, nor the scandal surrounding Vanessa, but about something deeper: the responsibility of fatherhood under crisis, the role of community in healing, and the often overlooked courage of those who step in without being asked, like Rosa. Adam wasn't immediately convinced. He'd spent months keeping the focus away from headlines. But this pitch was different. It didn't seek a soundbite or an exposé. The editor, a woman named Judith Klein, had covered foster system failures, caregiver burnout, and family reunifications over the past decade. She wanted to explore something rarely discussed in public: how love that isn't biological can still be the most powerful force in a child's life. Adam considered it carefully. Then, after a long evening discussion with Rosa, he agreed, on one condition. "I'll do the interview," he said. "But Rosa's story comes first. Rosa hesitated at the idea. She didn't like cameras. She didn't want her face on a cover. When Judith flew to Seattle 2 weeks later and sat with her in the Whitmore kitchen, Rosa's hands trembled around her teacup. But it didn't take long before her voice found its rhythm. She spoke of her upbringing in Oaxaca. Of her decision to move to the United States when she was 21. Of the jobs she'd worked, cleaning houses, caring for children, always on the edges of other people's lives. And then, of meeting Claire. Claire made me feel seen, Rosa said. She didn't treat me like help. She asked about my mother. She gave me a day off for my birthday. She told me I was family before I believed it. Judith listened without interruption. She asked gentle questions, never prodding. Rosa spoke of Lily's birth. Of the way Claire placed the baby in her arms. Of the long nights she sat beside a crib so Claire could sleep. Of how everything changed when the crash happened. She was gone, just like that, Rosa said. And I saw this little girl lose her mother. So I stayed. Not because I had to. Because I couldn't leave. Then she spoke of Vanessa. Carefully. Honestly. She didn't offer accusations, only facts. She described the day at the mall. The way she felt something was wrong before she knew why. The moment she broke the glass. The way Lily looked, barely conscious, in her arms. I didn't think, she said. I just moved. Judith asked why she had never sought formal guardianship until Adam offered it. Because I thought I wasn't allowed, Rosa replied. I wasn't blood. I wasn't official. I was just someone who loved her. Judith turned to Adam, who had remained silent until then. And when did you realize that just someone who loved her was more than enough? Adam glanced at Lily, who sat across the room, drawing with her crayons. The moment she reached for Rosa's hand in the hospital and whispered, "Don't let her take me again." That was it. I knew love wasn't about titles. It was about who showed up, every single time. The interview was published 2 weeks later, under the headline, "More Than Blood, How One Woman's Love Saved a Child, and a Family." It wasn't sensational. It didn't mention Vanessa's name until the final paragraph. But it went viral within 48 hours. Readers shared their own stories, about teachers who stepped in, neighbors who raised nieces and nephews, godparents who became legal guardians. People wrote from across the country, from different backgrounds, different cultures, all echoing the same truth: sometimes, family chooses you. Donations to the Safe Child Initiative doubled within the week. Rosa received letters from mothers, grandmothers, even social workers. One woman wrote, "Thank you for reminding us that love doesn't need permission." A local television station asked to do a follow-up segment. Rosa declined. She didn't want a spotlight, but she agreed to speak anonymously through a recorded voiceover, with Lily's face hidden, just for the sake of other caregivers in similar positions. The story became a centerpiece in a national conversation about child safety, informal guardianship, and legal advocacy for nonparental caregivers. Adam found himself invited to panels he never thought he'd attend. He declined most of them, choosing instead to fund quiet workshops and legal aid programs. But one evening, he accepted an invitation to speak at a conference for new fathers. Rosa attended too, at his request. He stood on a small stage in front of 300 men, young, old, some wide-eyed and terrified, others already years into fatherhood, and he said, "I almost lost my daughter not because I didn't love her, but because I forgot to question the comfort of a new beginning. I ignored what felt off. And I trusted charm over consistency. But someone else didn't. Rosa didn't. And that's why my daughter is alive today." Later, in the crowd, one young man approached Adam. "My sister just died," he said. "She left behind 2 kids. I'm trying to raise them. I'm scared every day." Adam placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you're doing it right. Fear means you care. But don't do it alone." Back in Seattle, the fall leaves turned crisp and golden. Lily returned to school full-time. her teachers reported she was opening up again, laughing, volunteering to read aloud, helping younger students at lunch. She drew pictures of Rosa weekly. Sometimes of Adam. Sometimes of all three of them under a big blue sky, holding hands beside a house with flowers in the yard. One picture, in particular, caught Rosa's eye. It showed Claire in the sky, with wings, watching over them. "Is that Mommy?" Rosa asked gently. Lily nodded. "She's watching to make sure you're still with me." Rosa hugged her, hard and long. As winter approached, the family prepared for the award ceremony Rosa had been nominated for. Lily picked out a blue dress. Adam arranged for a driver. Rosa, hesitant but grateful, agreed to go. The night of the ceremony, Rosa stood backstage, clutching a small card with her name on it. The host read her bio aloud to the room. "This year's Civilian Bravery Award goes to a woman who didn't wear a uniform or carry a badge, but who saw danger, acted fast, and saved a life, not just once, but every single day since." Rosa stepped onto the stage slowly. The applause was thunderous. She didn't say much. Only this: "I didn't rescue a child. I stayed with her. That's all. And I'll stay, always." When she stepped down, Lily ran to her and threw her arms around her legs. And in that moment, with cameras flashing and lights shining, Adam saw the truth he hadn't understood a year ago. Love wasn't loud. It wasn't glamorous. It was what happened when someone saw your child, really saw them, and never looked away. Seattle's winter unfolded in deep silences and slow sunrises. The air carried a chill that made windows fog with breath and turned morning walks into routines of bundled coats and woolen hats. At the Whitmore home, however, warmth radiated from within, not just from the fireplaces, but from the rhythm of life that had, at long last, found its steady pulse again. The award Rosa received had not been her idea, nor had she sought the public gratitude that followed. But it brought something unexpected: invitations. From schools, parenting circles, caregiver associations. They wanted to hear from her, not just the story, but the quiet wisdom behind her choices. Rosa, as always, remained reluctant to be the center of attention, but something in her had shifted since that night on the stage. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that her voice could make others feel braver too. Adam noticed it in the way she stood taller when entering Lily's classroom, how she no longer deferred to others out of habit. He noticed it especially the day the official request arrived from the State Department of Social Services, a proposal to name Rosa as an honorary advocate for nonparental guardianship reform. He handed her the letter over breakfast. She read it slowly, her thumb tracing the words. "They want me to speak?" she asked. "They want you to help shape the policy," Adam clarified. "To make sure other people like you don't fall through the cracks." Rosa folded the paper neatly. "Do you think I'm qualified for that?" "I think no one is more qualified," he said. "You saved my daughter. But more than that, you taught me what protection really looks like." Rosa didn't answer right away. But later that week, she agreed to join the advisory group. Her first session was scheduled for the new year. Meanwhile, Lily's world continued expanding. She had joined the school's winter reading club, and every Friday, she would bring home a new book to read with Adam and Rosa. Sometimes, she read aloud. Other times, she asked them to take turns. It became a ritual, a quiet ceremony of belonging. One Friday night, she paused mid-sentence and looked up from the book. "Can Rosa be my real grandma now?" Adam smiled. "She already is." "No, I mean, really real. Like, if someone asks." Adam looked at Rosa. "You can say whatever you want," Rosa said gently. "If you want to call me that, I'd be honored." "I do," Lily said. "Because you feel like forever." Later that weekend, Adam sat alone in his office, the last legal file on Vanessa closed and archived. The civil suits had been settled. The plea deal executed. Restitution was already in process. She was serving time, not much by his measure, but enough to mark her publicly. enough to prevent her from starting over easily under a new name. Still, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a closing door. One he never wanted to reopen. He stood and walked to the cabinet where Claire's journals were kept. He hadn't opened the final one in weeks. But tonight, he wanted to read her voice again. Wanted to hear her memory in ink. He flipped to the last page. To his surprise, there was a folded note tucked inside, written in Claire's hand, a letter not previously seen. It read, "If you're reading this, it means you've made it through something I never could. Maybe you found a new love. Maybe you've been broken and rebuilt. I hope, wherever you are, that you remembered what mattered most. Our daughter. Her safety. Her wonder. Her heart. Love isn't measured by what we give on perfect days, but by who stays close when the storms come. If someone stayed, trust them. And tell her I will always be watching." Adam closed the letter with tears in his eyes. He walked upstairs, found Lily asleep in bed with her stuffed fox curled under one arm. Rosa stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching her sleep. They didn't speak. But in the silence, Adam placed the folded letter in Rosa's hands. She read it. Then hugged it to her chest. In the weeks that followed, life continued its forward rhythm. Rosa was named an official advocate for a new Washington state program supporting informal guardians. Adam continued to expand the Safe Child Initiative, hosting workshops and creating materials distributed to hospitals and schools. Lily's artwork was featured in the program's first national brochure, a drawing of 3 hands holding a heart. In March, Adam sat with his estate attorney to update his will. When asked about guardianship, he didn't hesitate. "If anything ever happens to me," he said, "Lily stays with Rosa. No courts. No delays. That's final." The attorney nodded. Noted. As spring approached, a final envelope arrived, this one from Lily's school. Inside was a simple hand-drawn certificate. "To Grandma Rosa, for being the bravest heart in our school." It had been made by the children, a surprise orchestrated by Lily. When Rosa received it, she wept. "I didn't do it to be brave," she said. Adam smiled. That's why it mattered. One morning, as the cherry blossoms began to bloom again, Lily stood on the porch with a camera in her hands, a birthday gift from Adam. She aimed it toward the garden, where Rosa was tending to new bulbs, and snapped a photo. Then she turned the camera on Adam. "Smile." He did. She took another. Then looked at the display and said, "This is our family now." He walked over, knelt beside her, and kissed the top of her head. "Yeah," he said. "It is." They framed the photo the next day. 3 people. A garden in the background. No titles necessary. Just love, quiet, powerful, and finally complete.